That's what it was. Quite a small baby. A baby with bright blue eyes that gazed up trustingly into Henry's own brown ones. In all his 11 years, Henry had never given more than a passing thought to babies. Of course, he had friends at school with baby brothers or sisters. Henry's impression was that these lower beings were a considerable nuisance, although, curiously, people loved them. He had vaguely noticed babies being pushed about in prams. They slept, or they cried. Bald or bonneted, they all looked much of a muchness. If Henry had been asked to describe a baby, he would have said it was a kind of blob waiting to take proper shape. Very gingerly, Henry lifted up this particular little blob. What he thought was bubble wrap wasn't. It was some very soft, light material with tiny insulating air pockets. Henry eased a little of the hood away from the blob's face, as if to make absolutely sure it was a human child. The baby had tiny frilled ears that reminded him of buttercups. Did all babies have ears like this? Was this how ears began? Henry pulled up the hood again. "Well, wherever did you come from?" Henry asked. For answer, the baby waved its arms at him. Automatically, Henry put his finger into the baby's tiny hand, and the baby gripped it fiercely. Henry grinned. Obviously, this was an incredibly clever baby. It was unlike all others. In this, at least, Henry was right. Henry stood on the path in the pale January sunshine that had followed the storm, and wondered what to do next. The hollyhocks still jiggled and joggled, celebrating. Henry's first instinct had been to rush into the house, saying, "Look what I've found!" But the thought of Aunt Agatha stopped him. You could never guess what mood Aunt Agatha might be in. Henry thought Aunt Agatha herself probably couldn't guess it either. She just woke up one way or the other, wintry or summery, snappy or happy. Long ago, Aunt Agatha had had a baby of her own. Robin had died when he was only 4, and for many years grief had made Aunt Agatha mean and angry. In that mood, Aunt Agatha could make leaves fall off trees and smiles fall off faces with one withering look. It was as if a permanent winter had set in her heart. It was like that in the house, too. 131 Ballantyre Road, when Henry had first come to live there, was bleak and cold, a house haunted by sorrow. The arrival of Harvey Angell had changed all that. And that was because Harvey Angell was a homer. A homer was a bit like an electrician, but rather more like a magician, and a homer's job, Harvey Angell's job, was to turn unhappy houses into happy homes. When you learnt that this was done by connecting the living and the dead, it all sounded very spooky indeed. But then you had to understand about the circuit and the energy supply. Everyone, Harvey Angell had told Henry, everyone from the long, long dead to the yet-to-be-born was on the circuit. And what kept everyone connected was the energy. Energy that was a kind of love. Sorrow broke the circuit and switched love off. A sorrow such as Aunt Agatha's. A sorrow that blocked the energy, blocked out love. A sorrow that was catching like the flu, and which had made everyone in 131 Ballantyre Road miserable. That's how it had been until Harvey Angell arrived. He'd come with his silver flute, his connecting kit, his energy charger, and his magical centuries clock to reconnect them to the energy supply. And that's what he'd done. He'd released the sorrow of the house. He'd sparked happiness into everyone, even Aunt Agatha. But without Harvey Angell, without the sunshine of his 500-kilowatt smile, the music of his flute, the magic of his happy presence, Aunt Agatha lapsed now and again. Lapsed into winter, as though winter was necessary to her. Henry knew that in a wintry mood nobody, be it Queen, President, or pop star, would be a welcome visitor to 131 Ballantyre Road. Least of all, a baby. Henry looked down at the bundle in his arms and wished Harvey Angell would appear now. Sometimes he tried chanting Harvey Angell's rhyme in the hope that Harvey Angell would hear it and know that he was needed. He tried it now very, very quietly. Watts and volts, better by far than thunderbolts. Nothing happened. The bundle in his arms wriggled a little. It was a very warm bundle. Holding it was somehow comforting. "Don't worry about a thing," Henry told it, though he himself suddenly felt there was rather a lot to worry about. Leaving his school bag on the front path, Henry tiptoed round to the back of the house. From across the road, a window screeched open. Henry could feel the eyes of Mrs. Sowerby watching him. "She probably thinks I've stolen you," Henry told the bundle, for Mrs. Sowerby seemed to watch suspiciously every coming and going at 131. "Mr. Perkins," Henry whispered, close to the baby's buttercup ear. "That's who we need." Mr. Perkins was one of Aunt Agatha's 3 lodgers, and at this moment in time the most useful one. The other 2, Miss Muggins and Miss Skivvy, were mostly under Aunt Agatha's thumb. But Mr. Perkins was in love with Aunt Agatha, and had been known on occasions to charm her out of a winter mood and into mild spring. Mr. Perkins was also a poet, though in Henry's opinion not a very good one. But somehow Henry hoped that being a poet in love might also mean that Mr. Perkins had a soft spot for babies. Poets, love, babies, they seemed to go together nicely, at least in Henry's imagination. Everything depended on Mr. Perkins being up in his room working, rather than lolling about the kitchen scoffing biscuits and complaining that the muse had deserted him for the day. As soon as he reached the back garden, Henry could see, with relief, that Mr. Perkins was in his room. Not that he was working. The rather plump figure of Mr. Perkins was framed in the window, juggling. When he saw Henry, Mr. Perkins did one triumphant round of 3 balls, dropped them, and shoved open the window. "Henry!" he shouted. "What have you got there?" "Shh!" hissed Henry. "You'll wake the baby." "Baby?" shouted Mr. Perkins, and then, seeing the agonized look on Henry's face, hissed back, "Stay right there! I'm coming down!" Keeping out of the way of the downstairs windows, Henry waited. He suddenly remembered that babies were meant to be rocked, so he did a little rocking. It was undoubtedly a very good baby, he thought, because it didn't cry. Instead, standing in the silent garden, rocking and waiting for Mr. Perkins, Henry distinctly heard a tiny bleep, bleep, bleep.